Hey everybody, it is Carter Mann, and you have just fallen into the pull bag.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1Mike and the rest of the comic reading crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, IDW, Boom Studios, Zenescope, and more, we have everything you want to read right here. Transformers comics? Yeah, we cover that. He-Man? Yeah, sure. DC superheroes like Batman, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Batman Beyond? Yep, we have those too. How about TMNT from IDW and I Hate Fairyland from Image Comics? Yeah, we have all that here. Plus, so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So without any further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we are reading right now here inside the pull bag.
Hello and welcome to the pull bag. This is episode 399. That's right, 399 podcasts on this show, folks. I'm, of course, TFG1Mike. We're one away from 400. Joining me for the first time, and luckily we test audioed for about 2 minutes before we started this, is Mikey O'Sullivan from Moonbase 2, or I should say the new de facto leader of Moonbase 2.
I am a beneficent deity and will accept tribute.
As long as it's not orange hair pieces.
Yes. Wouldn't suit me.
And we're here to talk about a friend of mine's original hopefully ongoing, new comic book series. I knew this guy a couple of years ago. We've kind of kept in touch. He was a radio DJ for years and years and years. He's been in comics not in comics, but he's been an artist and doing his own thing for a while, and he's starting to try his best to break out into comics with his original idea. It is called Immortal Orphans. There is only one issue at this point. I keep up with Carter Mann is his name, and he is saying issue 2 is on the way, and he's working on issue 3. So hopefully Mikey and I can continue this because Carter Mann used to be, as he calls himself, a former radio god. I'll have to find some clips to send to you so you can hear this guy, but I love this. I thought this was going to be really cool to do, and I fumbled and floundered until somebody, luckily Mikey, took pity on me, because originally I was going to do this show solo, and I hate doing podcasts solo because I cannot, you might as well just have Kylo Ren emo kill me, because I just I can't fucking do it. I just cannot do it. And yes, this show is explicit, folks, so, you know.
I'm just imagining you now trying to record a podcast, and he can help me do it. Help me.
Yeah, really.
And then he runs you through.
Help me, Mikey Fuzz. You're my only hope. God. It's just all kinds of foobard. So yes, Immortal Orphans. According to Comixology's description for the series, this is what it's all about, and then we'll get into it. New original sci-fi superhero series from one-man comics machine, Carter Mann. Now, I asked him about this, and I actually joked with him about this character's name, because when I first saw it, I'm like, Ganon from Legend of Zelda? I'm pronouncing it as Ganion. If it's wrong, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I had it in my head there. I'm trying to remember I said Ganion.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ganion, he is a garbage man in the last city on Earth, who is blackmailed into a one-way time travel mission to change the fate of the planet. He soon finds himself in a world of quirky heroes and even more bizarre villains, almost all of which turn out to be family. Ooh, creepy. And what's worse than a lying cyborg mother and her cheeky AI assistant? How about an uncle who shoots intestines from his abs and a country infested with zombie babies? If Arrested Development and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had a baby, that baby would love the world of Immortal Orphans, where, by the way, that baby would have a 1 in 100 chance of becoming a zombie. Just saying.
And a cop, though. Steady employment.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Unless you're going to get murdered. That would not be good.
I mean, when your choices are dead and maybe a bit of a high-risk job, I know which one I take, but...
I mean, you are an educator, so, that is a pretty high-risk job.
I know how I'll go out. I know how I'll go out. On fire.
Set it on fire. 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 Yeah, that's probably the best Beavis impression I've done in 20 years. All right, so Immortal Orphans #1. I absolutely love this, but I don't know. I am a huge proponent, and I blame Amy for this. This is all everything I do in the pull bag is all Amy's fault at this point, because when she was running the underbase, well, yeah, I mean, you always got to blame Amy. I mean, when I first found her on the underbase and she was doing the full comic reviews of the Transformer stuff and whatever else, she was talking about Comixology and their guided view and the panel. I can't do anything but go panel by panel half the time anymore, because that's the best way for me to read it. Now, there are certain points in this issue that I noticed that it does what it's supposed to do, but I don't know. I don't know if Comixology was off on this. I'm not blaming Carter at all. I think it's once he, like that first panel, the first page here, it just seems off.
Yeah, there's a bit. I'm just flicking through it now, and there's something about the flow that's off.
Yeah,
but I've encountered that before with Comixology though, so.
Okay.
They're not they do their best, but no one's perfect. I think the second page is kind of the worst offender, because it kind of zooms in on the middle panel, and then when you scoot past, it actually zooms out, and suddenly it looks like you should be reading the top panel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which, yeah.
I don't know. So, as someone because this is like the 4th or 5th time in the Pullbag's history I've talked to someone from the UK. As someone from the UK looking in from the outside, what did you think of this?
The first thing I thought of was 2000 AD, to be honest. The way it flows and the kind of structure and the setup really reminded me of some of the late 70s, early 80s, 2000 AD I've read, which isn't a ton, but it's got that dystopian feel. It's also got that slight parody feel to it. Which at times isn't quite so slight, but and it's got how to phrase this, kind of semi steampunk or semi cyberpunk, some kind of punk going on.
Yeah.
But it's also once you hit the superhero elements, it also has a lot in common with. Oddly enough, it made me think of the first IDW Godzilla comic. What was it? Kingdom of Monster. Which was it was basically, this isn't a comment in this book, but that was the worst Godzilla book they did, and it had a lot of tongue-in-cheek parody of a lot of modern media stuff or social media or reality TV and stuff like that. And there's it's not the same, but some of the vibes give me that impression. Once what's their names? The scabs and the scabs and latex, when they show up, that kind of gives me that vibe of just there's much winking going on. I will say I think it played a bit better than Godzilla did, which literally murdered the cast of Jersey Shore because you do reality TV and you need to die. But that kind of thing. It's kind of combining those kind of two tropes for me, and I like that. I mean, I will say. I'm kind of looking for more for the actual full setup, because as I was reading through this, it's very much like this is a first active setup, we're getting the players in place. But I'm definitely interested. I'm definitely curious about where this goes, and I think that's a really strong start for an issue 1 from a writer I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, writer, artist, he does all of it. All of it is his art. And he has told me, and he has said on his Patreon and his Facebook and everything else, and wherever else Instagram, all that stuff, that the art leaps and bounds is better in issue 2 and issue 3. So yeah, I mean, I dug this. I thought it was really cool, and as kind of a inside baseball thing, for the 4.5, almost 5 years, I listened to him on the radio in the mornings because he was on. At the time, he was on 107.7 The Eagle in Louisville, Kentucky. Because even though I live in Vancouver, Washington now, I lived in Kentucky for 25 years. Oh boy, that's a long story. And I listened to him and his cohort Regular Laura, who is actually still the radio morning DJ out there, and they make a joke about pretty much all sports, and they basically just call it sports ball. So all these baseball puns in the very beginning, I'm like, I was half waiting for somebody to say, "Oh, will you two knock it off with that sports ball talk or something?" I don't know. But I like. I
just love the idea of someone. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just like the idea of this guy who looks a bit like Ian Malcolm. He looks a bit like Jeff Goldblum, but he's running away from this robot, and the robot is just throwing out these baseball puns. And his biggest criticism is, "Please stop with the baseball puns, or I'll start doing it."
Yeah,
and then he did.
And he starts doing it. Yep. And this is not anything against Carter Mann's book here or anything like that, Immortal Orphans. It's basically, it's a thing I don't like almost any medium. I really hate time jumps. In comics specifically, as much as I love the man, as much as I love all the artists, James Roberts, you murdering bastard, you killed my soul every time you timed 5 minutes in the past, 10 minutes in the future. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Luckily, Carter, we start out at 2440 AD, I think, if I'm right. And then we go back to, and then we go back to like 2220. Yeah. So we start out at 2420, and then we go back to 2220. And I'm okay with it here because it's one of those things where we stay, like, it's not every panel isn't now back to the present, now back to the past, now back to the some comics just should not do it that way, and luckily Carter does it in a way where it's like, oh, he has to time travel to this period. You know, it's kind of like a Marvel thing. I love the whole sword and gunfight. Like, why are you going to pull a knife to a gunfight? That was hilarious.
Yeah, I always love. I watch far too much anime, and I do always love when it's just like, "Ha, you've got a sword." Yeah, that should probably tell you something right now.
Yep.
But like that was an interesting scene just because that was where I really got that parody vibe of like, because like the language felt so 90s in a good way. It's like it's almost like the stuff that's going on in the first page, the first section is kind of set now-ish, and then like this is the 90s, and then like it's kind of like a parody of the sort of like the Dark Age extreme comics where everyone kind of talk like, "Yo, man, super cool, hyped, other lit language." I don't know, but
and we have our hero Quinn, who is going to save the human bodies from being put in the dump. Man, just
disposable people.
Well, apparently that's how the United States was thought of the last 4 years, but anyway.
I'm saying nothing.
Mutton? What's a mutton? Anyway, that's a bad... where the hell did I get that from? Anyway, so, yes, I do think I love his art and various... like the whole ship thing. Like, I'm glad Carter created this funky looking spaceship that really does like anything I could compare it to. Like, it's a maroon Batmobile that flies. No, not really. It's the DeLorean. No, not really. It's a police box. No, not really. I love the way that how interesting that Quinn's ship looks, and that we actually go back to 2010 to where he's remembering about his daughter and all of that, and yeah,
the unstoppable debt cuddle.
That was funny.
I've got to remember to use that line with my niece. But I like that bit because it felt in the middle of all this like mad nonsense, that relatively human moment of just saying random bullshit to your child and having some fun.
Yeah,
and then brought down to like, whoop, no, she's gone. But also like she died at 82, which raises a question about like what you've been doing for the last couple of 100 years, buddy.
Well, as far as I can tell, without actively just reading the comic throughout the entire podcast, even though I am thumbing through it panel by panel, as far as I can tell, that this is 2220, so that's number of years after she died, and apparently Quinn's immortal. So, and that's kind of the point of the title. As Carter was telling me, and he told me in a Facebook message that most superheroes are either immortal or they're orphans. They're either the Hulk or they're from Krypton. Kind of thing. So, yeah, I did the math on that too, and I'm like, wait a minute, she lived for 80-something years.
He's going around. She died before her time.
Oh Lord, I don't know. Maybe we'll get more. I mean, I like you say, I love that we have this moment in the middle of all this psychotic, crazy awesomeness, and maybe we'll get more with that later. But who knows? I have no clue. I've only seen various teaser images for the second issue, so I haven't seen obviously the full second issue. So we jump to the hernia man in the hernia layer. Oh Lord.
Not the best superpower.
Yeah, no. And we get the girl here, Liberty Durant, who apparently is it's his sister, but she's the daughter of the villain or something. I forget off the top of my head.
Yeah, like the way this is structured, it really feels like brother and sister might be a very broad term for what's going on here. Because I get the feeling like basically if you're alive in this era, you're considered family.
Yeah, that's true. I do love, and I say this sarcastically and ironically, I do love the whole thing where the cops come in, expect deadly force upon non-compliance. And she just, there's this giant thing of his eyes, and with the exclamation point, I'm like, hey, where's Snake? I don't see no snakes around here. I don't see no solid. I don't see no liquid.
I do see the suspicious cardboard box.
Exactly, yes. But seriously, anytime I see an exclamation point like this, especially if it's on red on a white, it's not a white background, but his eyes and skin green, white, and the thing is like reddish orange. Anytime I see that exclamation point, hello, Metal Gear. And she just shoots him in the head, like, officer down, we need backup. Oh boy. And then the backup arrives. Ooh, the twins. Not really actual twins, but ugh. Yeah. These guys are creepy. It's, Scabs and latex. What a way to throw a condom joke in a comic.
as he wraps around the only woman there.
Yeah.
trips around her.
See, this is why I'm glad I ran into you, because only you would be able to bring this humor to this podcast. I would just be like, so yeah, the latex wrapped around her. Ugh.
She. Look at it this way. She's very safe. She's very safe. It's just a combination of her being in a room with latex scabs and a hernia. That's either a very good or a very bad night.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably a very bad night. Oh, Lord. And they have this battle, and I love the action in it. I think it's cool, and I love how Carter is able to take, like earlier in the comic, before we get to the point of scabs and latex, he does a POW, like, the old 66 Batman POW, and, he's got a whoosh in here, he's got a no, he does all this, at least what we used to, I guess comics culture calls it onomatopoeia anyway, but I only heard it, again, I blame Amy. It's one of those things where, like, all the sound effects, all the things of what's going on as the action happens, I'm like, wow, this is really, really fun.
Yeah, it's like I really got into good sound effects, like looking at Tom King's stuff. So like I became really super aware of like how, when onomatopoeia is used right, when it's used wrong, and I think it's used well here. Like I like the use of the whoosh sound effect when they're shooting latex. Like I really like that the whoosh is actually in like the trail left behind. I think that's a really nice effect. Like dynamic. Like I really like the use of dynamic sound effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get to Liberty running for her life, and then we go back to Delta Hive 2420. And yikes. It's a portal, folks. It's a time jump.
I do like the line. Is this blindfold really necessary? At this point, no.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it off, but I'm just going to leave it on.
Yeah.
I actually quite like Artie. Artie's kind of my favorite character in this. He comes across as like a really pleasant jerk. Yeah, he comes across as a really pleasant jerk. Like, don't worry, I'm giving you a pain sedative. Why didn't you give me that first?
Yeah. So this comic literally has for 23 pages, he really packed in everything he could think of. Between the torture scene, between the police scene, between the chase, between the superheroes, between everything else. And the fact that, Gannion's just a garbage man. He's the last garbage man on Earth or something or other. I think my favorite panel is with Artie and the ones and zeros. I think that's my favorite full panel. It's just so cool.
I think that's really... I like also like the dots kind of make the zeros look like eyes. Like
they're definitely watching you. And then we kind of get to the end of this, and we have, I assume that's Liberty. Yeah, that's her.
Yes, that's old lady Liberty.
Yeah, old lady Liberty. Yeah. So overall, I dug this. I thought it was really cool. This is like my 5th or 6th time going through it to make sure I got everything correct and make sure that, I understood it and figured out what the hell I was going to say, because as I said originally, this was going to be a solo show, and those suck. At least from me. From me, if I did a solo show, it would suck. Just check out the first 11 episodes of the TFG1 podcast. You'll know what I mean, folks. 2008, 2009. We kind of miss you, but not really. How did you... Okay, so at the end of this, we know that Durant, I forget what his first name is, but the overall leader, Durant, is a... I mean, it's very clear allegory to what we used to have here in the United States. It's a very clear, hey, this is our Trump character.
Yeah. This is kind of like what if it went to what if it went as far as some people were afraid it was going to. That's
Exactly.
this is he's taken on the role of the universal dictator. Like what was it, Julian Durand, I think it was.
Julian Durant, that's what it is. Yeah,
And like you're not even free in that. If you die, you get revived as the police force. If your family, you get modified into whatever seems to be useful to them. And it's like the superheroes clearly aren't at this stage.
No.
So it's an interesting idea. I kind of wish we'd seen him specifically in this.
Right.
I think that would have been like if Liberty had met him first and we got a sense of like, is he going to be like the cackling maniac or the scarily reasonable one? The one that you think you could, the one you think you could make a deal with, but you make the mistake.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely interested in the setup. And I definitely
the setup is great.
And I definitely like where it's going. There's a little bit of Fear Agent in this, like not a ton, but just the general vibe of, especially with Gannion, like this vibe of a guy who's about to go in way over his head into a not very nice situation that's going to come back and bite him in the ass quite a lot.
Yes. And it just seems like he is in way over his head. And now that I've gone through it with you, and now that I've gone through it for, like I said, the 6th or 7th time, I'm not so disappointed. I'm not so feeling as bad about the time jumps because I have to say that in this, they make the most sense because you start out at 2420, you go back to 2220, and then you have the little flashback to 2010 kind of thing. But it's one of those things where we're spending time in each time's period, and it's not just a constant jump of events. That's my biggest problem with time jumps is if you start out in this year for 2 panels, in the next panel you're in this year, but then you're in this year, that's the biggest, it just feels like disjointed storytelling to me when people do it like that. But this does it well now that I've read through it and kind of get it and all that, good stuff like that. No, I'm very excited. I'm excited for Carter. I'm excited for what he's doing with it. He spent the last, basically all of the pandemic working on this thing, this new thing that he's got, because he got furloughed from his job. And just absolutely, I am super excited. It's a Comixology original, I think, or it's a Comixology submit. So basically, folks, if you're a writer, if you're an artist, and you're not with a specific publisher, if you haven't been picked up by a specific publisher, which begs the question, where do you think, if anyone was to pick this up, what company do you think would pick it up?
Oh God. I'm just thinking, I think with a bit of a refinement, it would go to something like Dark Horse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is very much in their wheelhouse of the kind of topics they cover.
Right.
I also think, if you went the other direction, if you, because I think some of these ideas could be quite advanced as they're developing, but what's a company oh God, in a weird way, and I think this might be the visual, that kind of reminds me of some of the old Malibu stuff. Revive Malibu and see what happens. Not that I ever read a lot of Malibu, but I don't know. The thing is, this is the kind of thing I would like to see to go to someone like Red or IDW or something like that, because it will essentially stay independent. I mean, you could send it to someone like Image as well, but Image has very much an identity these days, and I don't think this falls into it.
Yeah, especially with them launching Radiant Black. As much as I love Radiant Black, it only has
still
fun issues
have to read that.
But
still have to read that.
Oh,
it's Kyle Higgins, isn't it?
Yes, it's so good. But Immortal Orphans, I am extremely excited for the future of Carter Man stuff. I hope somebody does pick it up, but at the same time, I'm very glad that he's doing this on his own. As I said before, he does have a Patreon page for it, and I will link that in the show notes and the show description so people can go check that out. Just so much fun. Now, we do have I didn't tell Mikey this in the beginning, but we do have a universal rating scale. Yeah, well, I'll send it to you later. It's basically 0 to 5 with half points, so it's kind of like 0 to 10, but we do it 0 to 5, and you can do 2.5 or 3.5 or whatever. Basically, I'm going to give this probably a 4, 4.5. There wasn't really anything here that I did not dislike or wasn't any problems. I felt like my main things are I want more. Tell me more. Give me more story. That's my main thing. So
I think, like, as an individual comic, like, if I was picking this up, I'd probably aim for 3.5 to 4. I think it reads really well. I think I'm curious about the setup. I'm curious about where it goes. Because this is the first issue, and because I think this is setting a standard, and like I'm always aware of this with books, because I tend to rate books more as themselves rather than like I've got a big scale of books and if you're XYZ. So I would say this is 3 because I think this is setting your baseline, and I'm expecting further issues to go up to the 4 or the 5 range if they stay like this. And I will say, like, if this is his first go at writing something, whether this gets picked up or not, he's definitely got a good portfolio building up to submit to someone and say, like, listen, I did this. It's this quality. These are my ideas. Like, give me a shot.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that has really, really sharp, witty ideas, and you can clearly tell. And again, with me knowing, quote unquote, how much can you know a morning radio DJ host, but former morning radio DJ. But it's one of those things where you listen to him every day for 2, 3, 4 years. You kind of get to know how their humor is and everything else. And it's one of those things where he's a very sharp wit, and he can go tongue in cheek. We've saw it in this. He can go tongue in cheek. He can go serious. I mean, I was not expecting the Quinn moment to flash back to 2010 with his, remembering his daughter. I was not expecting that. I'm like, oh, wait, no. First you make me laugh with all your sports ball puns, and now you're like, now you need to cry. And I'm like, no, I don't want to cry, but you're going to make me do it anyway. Where can the people find you online, sir?
Oh, God. Easiest way to find us, the Moonbase 2 at Twitter. And we've got a podcast as well, which is up on Libsyn, Moonbase 2 at libsyn.com. We generally talk, well, ostensibly it's Transformers, but anyone who listens to the show will generally say it'll just turn into whatever the hell we're thinking about at the time. So we'll, especially these days where there's very little news, so we've got to fill the space somewhere. So check us out, like, even if you're not in
news.
There's usually something, but I think the last time we had something with no news at all, I think we reviewed a movie or something. Oh, I know, we reviewed the Netflix series, the last the
Earthrise.
No, War for Cybertron, because it was July, and I remember because we were going to send it separate, and then we realized there was no news that week, so we made it the main show. Like,
so it was Siege.
Yeah. So that would have been June, July-ish. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if we're going to do a full review for Kingdom. I'll wait and see.
Yes. We have big plans here at the Geekcast Radio Network. Yeah. We've already done Siege. We've already done Earthrise. We're going to do Kingdom, and then we're going to come back, watch it all together, and do one big giant thing of all three of them.
Good Lord.
We're crazy. I'm crazy. So it's just nuts. All right, you can catch Mikey on Twitter under the Moonbase 2 thing. As always, that'll be in the show notes on the post on the website. You can hear all our other things of how to catch us and whatever in the outro as always. And coming up next time, March 6th, 2021, is our 400th episode. And I still have no fucking clue what I'm doing with it. Recording this on February 20th, and I have some semblance of a clue, but I have no clue. I think the only 2 episodes I really know how to plan out right now is what I'm doing for episode 404 and what I'm doing for episode 411. So, there's that. Make your great escape into comics. We will catch you next time here inside the Pull Bag.
Bye-bye.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.